Welcome to Bedtime Whisper. My name is Thomas, your host for tonight's story. Tonight, we journey far from the noise of deadlines and buzzing phones to a morning unlike your own. A morning in the Zulu Kingdom, long before the tick of clocks or the buzz of alarms. Here, time is marked not in minutes, but in mist, not in seconds, but in the low, warm sound of cattle shifting their weight as the sun begins its slow climb. Tonight, you'll rise before dawn alongside a family whose rhythms follow the stars, not a screen. You'll listen to the soft clink of clay pots, the gentle scrape of stone on maize, and the even gentler hum of rituals handed down, mouth to ear, palm to palm. Of course, don't expect bacon and eggs. Here, breakfast might be a thick porridge, stirred with quiet pride, a sip of fresh milk, poured first for the ancestors, and the slow hush of voices waking to the day. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps more sleepy travelers find us. And if you're listening from somewhere far or familiar, post your location and local time in the comments. We love knowing how the world winds down together. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sky is still dark when you wake, not the jarring kind of wakefulness that arrives with a phone vibration or the honk of distant traffic, but the kind of waking that's more like floating. The wind is quiet. There's no door to slam, just a slow shift in the air, a sense that something is beginning. You open your eyes, not to glass and drywall, but to a rounded, woven thatched roof above you. It curves inward, like a great bowl turned upside down, shadows curling across it as if painted by breath. The air smells faintly of smoke, not acrid city smoke, but something deeper, old wood burned slowly overnight, and the lingering traces of ash that have clung lovingly to the floor for generations. Outside, something stirs, a gentle scuff, the sound of bare feet over packed earth. Then a low creak. Someone's lifting the animal skin flap from the doorway. You sit up slowly. There's no rush, no blaring morning news, just the chorus of dawn gathering its voice, crickets beginning to hush, a bird somewhere trilling a lonely, optimistic note. You notice the chill now. It's not bitter, but brisk enough that you pull your blanket closer, woven from thick, coarse wool, dyed in natural earth tones. It smells faintly of the hut, smoke, grass, and something almost sweet. You step out, and the ground is cool beneath your feet. There are no shoes yet, only sand and scattered grass and the soft thump of your heels as you follow the others, who have already begun to stir. The homestead is called a kraal. It's circular, enclosed by a fence of thick acacia branches, each one carefully bent and tied into a living wall. The huts stand like patient elders, each with a wide base and peaked roof arranged around, a central space where the ashes of last night's fire still glow. A few others are up already. No one speaks loudly. They don't need to. Everything in the kraal speaks without words. There's the thrum of cows shifting in their enclosure, a soft chorus of low moos, and the rhythmic clank of wooden bells tied around their necks. There's the creak of a woman adjusting the lid on a clay pot, and somewhere, the whistle of the wind through dry thatch. A girl brushes past you, still groggy, carrying a bundle of kindling under one arm. She doesn't meet your gaze, but nods gently, in that way that says both good morning, and we are already busy. Not far from her, an elder woman kneels at the edge of the hearth. She is not lighting the fire from scratch. No, that would be noisy, sharp. This fire is never allowed to die, not fully. She reaches into the mound of ashes and finds the heart of it, a soft, pulsing ember, still holding yesterday's warmth. With slow hands, she feeds it tiny twigs, then dried grass. Her breath is soft but sure, a practiced exhale. The fire catches. It doesn't roar, it purrs. You can't help but crouch beside her, feeling the warmth. She doesn't look at you, but her hands move with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of doing something that matters. She adds a few larger pieces of wood, not too many. She wants heat, not smoke. And then she speaks. A word, not to you, but to the fire. It's not clear whether it's a greeting, a command, or simply habit, but she says it softly, as though the fire is listening and might decide to behave better if treated kindly. Behind you, a rooster decides it's time to contribute. Its call is less dramatic than you'd expect, more like a croaky trumpet on its first attempt. The others in the kraal barely glance up. Time isn't being tracked. It's being felt. The sun is not yet over the horizon, but the air is already shifting, light softening the edges of the mountains in the distance, revealing their stubborn outlines. The mist lifts from the grass like shy spirits, brushing the ankles of a few goats as they wander sleepily past. You are offered a cup, carved from hollowed wood, the rim worn smooth by use. Inside is warm water, infused with herbs, something like mint, but earthier. You sip it slowly, and it settles somewhere below your ribs. Not just warmth, belonging. This is breakfast, but not in the way you know it. There is no table, no menu, no sense of rush. Everything is unfolding, gently, without commentary. Everyone knows their role, and yours, right now, is simply to be still, to listen, to feel your breath match the wind's pace, to let the morning unfold, one soft task at a time. The kraal wakes, not with noise, but with memory, and you are part of it. The fire you watched bloom from ash is now dancing, alive with tiny orange tongues, licking the edges of the pot placed on its tripod stand. It's not metal, at least, not in the way you'd think of a pan or kettle. It's thick, dark clay, curved and seasoned by smoke. You can almost hear it sigh with familiarity as it warms again. The elder woman, the same one who coaxed the fire back to life, adds water from a gourd vessel, her hands as steady as the morning wind. There is no rush, no recipe printed on paper or pixel, just knowledge folded deep into her fingers, inherited like a family quilt. She measures the water by feel. When it's just right, she adds a generous scoop of coarse, pale mealy meal, ground maize, that sends soft clouds up into the golden light. The porridge will take time. Everything here takes time. That's the point. Around you, the kraal hums awake. A young boy trots barefoot across the central clearing, a stick in one hand, hair still flattened on one side from sleep. He shouts something teasing to an older sibling who replies with a dramatic groan and flops back onto a grass mat outside one of the huts. Somewhere, a goat bleats with the urgency of a bad actor. It's chaos, technically, but an extremely quiet, controlled kind of chaos. Like everyone's been through this scene 1,000 times before, and the lines haven't changed. You catch a whiff of something toasty and nutty, the porridge starting to thicken. The woman stirs it with a carved wooden spoon, the size of a small paddle, the handle worn smooth from years of breakfast. She doesn't stir quickly. There's no whisking, just a slow, steady turn, like she's rowing a boat through soft syrup. A teenage girl arrives, her arms full of maize cobs, not for today's porridge. These are for grinding, but that's a job someone else will do. She kneels gracefully and begins stripping them, humming something under her breath. The tune is repetitive, in a pleasant way, like a lullaby for hands. Over by the fence, a man stands watching the cattle, not doing anything to them really, just observing. In the Zulu Kingdom, cattle aren't just food or milk machines. They're economy, ceremony, and kin. Each one has a name. They are spoken to, sung to, and sometimes gossiped about. He calls out to a particularly sleepy-looking cow with curved horns and an impressive huff. The cow ignores him. You feel the air shift, subtly, the way a room changes when someone important enters. You glance toward the homestead gate, expecting a visitor. But there's no one, just the wind, now curling through the kraal with a little more insistence, lifting corners of blankets, tugging lightly at your sleeve. The elders say this is when the ancestors stir. It's not that they appear with trumpets or glowing lights. They're already here. The breakfast rituals are not just about eating. They're about remembering. You begin to notice how many things happen in silence, how every task, fetching water, mending a basket, laying out a mat, feels like a prayer with no words. A small girl with a potbelly toddles toward you and offers a stone, smooth, round, completely unremarkable. But she looks at you like she's giving you treasure. You take it. She beams. Somewhere, a rooster offers a second, slightly more confident crow. He's getting there. The porridge is nearly done now. It bubbles with soft plops, the steam rising like invisible fingers reaching for the sun, which has begun to crest over the hills. Light spills into the kraal, making the ash shimmer like powdered silver. The woman stirs a final time, then pulls the pot slightly from the fire's heart to let it rest. You can smell the roasted maize, the warm graininess of the mealy meal, and a faint sweetness from the milk that will be added soon. The boy with the stick returns, this time dragging behind him a carved wooden seat, low to the ground, with legs so stubby it looks like it might belong to a gnome. He plops it down beside the pot and grins at you. He is clearly pleased with himself. No one else reacts. It seems he does this every morning. You sit again. The seat is lopsided. Your knees bump your chin a little, but somehow it feels right. An older man approaches, gray beard neat and braided, skin weathered like ancient bark. He nods toward the pot and then to you. He doesn't speak. Instead, he lowers himself beside you, moving with the kind of grace only older men in strong bodies can summon. He picks up a small bowl, carved from gourd, and dips it into the water basin nearby. Not to drink, but to wash it. He cleans the bowl gently, pouring water over it like it's being baptized, not a splash wasted. There's a rhythm here. Even the cleaning has choreography. When he finishes, he sets the bowl down next to the pot and rises again without a sound. You've still said nothing. You realize you don't need to. The girl who is singing now joins the elder woman. They begin slicing small strips of dried meat, not for breakfast, but to flavor a later stew. They talk quietly, in Zulu, voices blending like the wind in tall grass. Your stomach growls softly, but you're not impatient. You've forgotten what impatience even feels like. The sun is warm on your skin now. The goats are fully awake and bleating their opinions to anyone who'll listen. The cattle jostle slightly in their enclosure, the wooden bells singing their off-key melody, and somewhere beneath all of it, the fire hums. The porridge breathes, and the day continues to unfold, not because of a clock, but because it's ready. Breakfast is coming, but not just yet. The air is warmer now, but not by much. The mist that once clung to the ground is starting to lift, revealing more of the path beneath your feet. Packed earth, smoothed by generations of barefoot steps. You follow the quiet flow of motion toward the center of the kraal again, where the fire has settled into a steady, glowing rhythm. It's no longer leaping. It's purring. The clay pot over the flames has stopped bubbling aggressively. Now it breathes. A soft, thick porridge, uphuthu, the crumbly kind, has begun to form in the middle of the pot. The woman stirring it no longer needs to watch it closely. She stirs because it feels right, because her mother did it, and her mother's mother, because it is part of the music of the morning. And now, before anyone can taste the first spoonful, it's time to speak, not to each other, yet. First, to the ones who are not here, but never far. The elder woman straightens her back and dips a small ladle into the porridge. She turns from the pot and walks a few slow steps toward a tree just beyond the cooking circle. It isn't grand, just a modest tree with gnarled roots and branches reaching slightly sideways. But you can feel the energy shift as she approaches it. She lowers herself to her knees, her spine still tall, her presence somehow even taller. She scoops a small mound of the porridge into a wooden bowl, one used only for this, and sets it gently at the base of the tree. She murmurs a few words. You don't catch all of them, and it wouldn't matter if you did. They aren't for you. She thanks the ancestors, not in a dramatic, ceremonial chant, but in a soft, practical voice, as if updating relatives who live just beyond the skin of the world. She tells them breakfast has begun, that the fire woke, that the maize ground well today, that the children are healthy. And then she pauses. There's no rush. This moment is elastic. She waits, letting the silence between her words speak for her. She dips her fingers into the porridge and presses them to the earth beside the bowl. Another word, a name maybe. Then she rises, slowly, and turns back toward the fire. A breeze rustles the dry grass at the edge of the kraal, just enough to carry the steam and scent of the offering outward. No one claps. No one marks it with applause or a signal to move on. The ritual isn't the interruption of the morning. It is the morning. It folds back into the rhythm as quietly as it came. You return to the fire. The rest of the porridge is ready. A second pot, smaller, is being warmed now, filled with milk, fresh and unboiled, taken moments ago from the cows. You catch a whiff of it as someone pours a gourdful into the heating vessel. It smells alive, creamy, a little grassy, with a sour note from yesterday's calabash still clinging to the edge. A man sits cross-legged and begins shaving bark from a small, curved stick. It looks like he's making a tool, but when he finishes, he places the thin shavings into the milk pot. You lean closer. It's umsuzwane, a medicinal herb, not just for flavor, for balance. There's a purpose to every ingredient here. Not always nutritional, not always explained, but felt, known. And now, it's time to wash. Not with soap, not with water even. A small bowl of ash and crushed dry herbs is passed around. Each person dips their hands into it, rubbing the mixture between their fingers and across their palms. It smells faintly of sage and something sharper, possibly wild garlic. It doesn't scrub like soap. It doesn't foam or rinse, but it leaves the hands clean, dry, and fragrant. You join in. The texture is strange at first, gritty and cool, but satisfying, like smoothing sand between your fingers at the edge of a river. Someone beside you wipes their hands on their legs, then smiles. You do the same. Now the bowls come out. Each one is slightly different. Gourd, wood, even a few carved from old horn. They are passed hand to hand, each one filled not all at once, but with quiet care. No one is served until the firekeeper has eaten. She takes her bowl, adds a ladle of porridge, and a smaller splash of the herb-infused milk. She lifts the bowl and exhales, not toward anyone, but upward, a nod to the sky. Then she takes the first bite, and with that, the meal begins. You are handed your bowl. It's warm, both from the food and from the hand that held it before you. The porridge is thick, with a texture like damp couscous, or the inside of good bread. The milk has mellowed in the heat, the herbs having blended into it like memory into dream. You take a bite, and it's not like any breakfast you've had before. It's not sweet, not salty. It tastes like earth, and wood smoke, and something older. It tastes like the sound of the fire, and the breath of the woman who stirred it, and the laugh of the boy with the lopsided stool. It tastes like a place that remembers you before you speak. You eat slowly. Everyone does. There's no conversation yet, just the sound of hands moving, lips smacking softly, a few appreciative sighs. It's a quiet chorus of living, and through it all, the offering bowl remains at the base of the tree, steam still rising, not touched, but very much received. The morning has ripened. That soft, glowing hush of pre-dawn has lifted, and now light trickles into the kraal more confidently, draping golden folds across the rooftops and warming the dry earth. There's a quiet fullness in your belly, but not the heaviness of overindulgence. This was food designed to sustain, not sedate. You rise slowly, wiping the edge of your bowl with your fingers. Nearby, a small child uses hers like a spoon, scooping every last crumb of porridge into her mouth with astonishing focus. She hums between bites, a tune with no real notes, just a rhythm that matches her chewing. The meal is nearly over, but one sound grows louder now, the steady sandpaper rasp of maize being ground by hand. You turn toward it and see a girl, perhaps no more than 10 or 11, kneeling on a flat stone slab. In front of her, a shallow trough carved into the surface cradles dried maize kernels. She holds a rounded grinding stone in both hands, pressing it into the trough and moving it forward and back with deliberate care. Shh, shh, shh. The sound is soft but firm. The rhythm is steady, like waves on a distant shore. You join her, sitting just far enough not to disturb her pattern. She doesn't look up at first. She's focused, her arms working in smooth arcs. Her palms press into the stone, knuckles brushing the edge of the trough. A small cloud of maize dust blooms each time she shifts the grinding stone, rising like golden mist. Eventually, she glances over at you and raises an eyebrow, not rude, just curious. You smile. She shrugs, then leans over and taps the maize with her index finger. The message is clear. This is how we do it. And so, you watch. Each stroke breaks the kernels further down. The pieces go from grain to grit to soft meal, textured like rough flour. She pauses every few minutes to scoop the crushed maize aside, creating space in the trough for fresh kernels. She's efficient, not hurried. Her movements are not just about strength, but memory, technique. Behind her, an older woman tends to the maize set aside yesterday. It's already ground, sifted, and dried. She stirs it with her fingers, checking for moisture, clumps, or small stones. Nothing escapes her attention. Her eyes move like hawks, but her hands are gentle. You realize something. Nothing in this process is wasted. Not time, not ingredients, not movement. The girl shifts slightly and starts humming again. This time, a more recognizable tune. Still simple, still steady. She adds a bit of shoulder to the rhythm now, letting the whole upper half of her body sway. As the stone slides back and forth, you can hear someone laughing softly nearby. A group of boys has gathered to mimic her movements, using 2 stones and some scattered pebbles. Their grinding is loud, inefficient, and accompanied by exaggerated singing. The girl doesn't even look at them. She just smirks and keeps going. Dog ambles past, tongue lolling. It eyes the crushed maize, then flops down in a patch of shade with a grunt that sounds suspiciously judgmental. You pick up one of the kernels she's set aside. It's pale yellow, flat, slightly cracked. You roll it between your fingers. It's rough, textured, real. There's no barcode here, no noise, no packaging. Just the slow, satisfying transformation of something hard and dry into something nourishing. And still, she grinds. Some mornings, this would be your job. You imagine your arms beginning to ache around now, shoulders complaining. But the girl shows no sign of tiring. She's part of the rhythm of this place, and she fits it perfectly. She pauses finally, lifting the grinding stone with a soft grunt and stretching her arms toward the sky. Her palms are dusty, her knees stained, but she smiles, quietly pleased. The older woman calls out from the side and holds up a carved wooden sieve. The girl nods and begins to pour the crushed maize from the trough into a woven basket. She does this slowly, tapping the edge of the basket to help the finer meal fall through. And again, there's music in it. You realize there's music in everything here. The crackle of the fire, the scrape of the strigil, the whistle of a kettle made from calabash, the giggles from the children as they dare each other to eat raw kernels. Terrible idea, you'll soon learn. And the gentle, ancient hush of stone on stone. The girl turns to you and without a word offers the grinding stone. It's heavier than it looks. You wrap your fingers around the smooth, worn sides and place it into the trough. The motion isn't difficult, but it demands respect. You push, and the maize dust rises again. Shh, shh, shh. There it is. The rhythm. You're part of it now. Not an observer, a contributor. The girl nods in approval, wipes her hands on her skirt, and stands. She stretches again, then walks off toward the goats, calling out to one like it owes her money. The older woman comes over, crouches beside you, and picks up a handful of the sifted meal. She rubs it between her fingers, then nods with approval and places it into a nearby storage basket lined with dry leaves. This meal won't be used immediately. It will sit for a few days, rest, become part of something else. Bread, maybe. A thicker stew, a dumpling. For now, it waits. Like everything else in this place, it knows not to hurry. And as you lift the grinding stone one last time, your muscles warming, your breath slowing, you feel it again. This life, this rhythm, it doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. It just continues. By now, the kraal has shifted from waking to working. The sun is well above the hills, casting long, warm shadows from the huts and trees. The light feels brighter, but still gentle, like it understands that people here already carry enough brightness of their own. You stretch, brushing maize dust from your palms, and follow the scent of something cooking. Again, back at the fire, the pot from earlier has been cleaned and set aside, and now a second vessel sits over fresh wood. The woman attending it stirs slowly with the same long-handled spoon, her arms steady. This time, what's cooking isn't porridge, it's milk. Fresh milk, still warm from the cows, has been poured into the pot, not to boil it, but to warm it through, gently, carefully. You lean closer and breathe in. It's soft, creamy, a little sour in a pleasant, earthy way. No added sugars, no coffee, just milk and memory. Nearby, the gourd containers, calabashes, hollowed and dried, are lined up neatly. Each one tells its own story. They vary in shape and shade. Some are patched with leather. Some are stained with age and use. One has tiny marks scratched into its base. Maybe a name. Maybe a symbol. One of them is handed to you. You hold it carefully. It's warm from the sun, the texture like old wood and stone at once. The inside holds fermented milk from yesterday. Amasi, thick and tangy, a living food. It's not served cold, but room warm, ready to be blended with a fresh batch warming on the fire. You watch as the warm milk is ladled from the pot into the calabash, mixing with the fermented contents. A wooden lid is fitted on top, and the vessel is gently rocked back and forth. Not shaken, rocked, as if to remind it of the rhythm it already knows. After a few minutes, the lid is removed. A clean, sour scent rises. It's ready. Before anyone drinks, though, the offering is made again, just a small ladleful, poured onto the earth near the hearth. A whisper is spoken. You don't hear the words, but you feel the intention. This part of the ritual never rushes. The first sip is always taken by the elder woman. She tastes, closes her eyes, nods. Then the calabash is passed, hand to hand. No one gulps. The milk is thick, nearly chewable. You take a sip, and it surprises you. It's sour, yes, but not unpleasant. It tastes like something that's been alive a long time. It fills your mouth and your chest in a way water never does. You understand suddenly why this isn't served with a spoon or in a mug. It belongs in this carved, breathing gourd. It feels different, sacred even. Around the kraal, others continue their work. A man sharpens a wooden hoe using a smooth stone. Two women sit under a tree weaving reed mats, their fingers moving like birds pecking through grass. No one moves quickly, but everything is being done. The calabash returns to its shelf. A cloth is placed over it, not sealed, just covered, like a thought left to rest. You notice a boy crouching near the fire, carving a spoon. He's focused, tongue stuck slightly between his teeth. The wood is curved already, the edges smoothed by a rough stone. He catches your eye and grins, holding up his creation with pride. The spoon is wonky, sure, but perfect in its own way. You sit beside him, and he hands you a small piece of bark with an unspoken invitation. You carve, slowly, awkwardly, aware of how little your hands know this work. But it's not about perfection. It's about presence. The boy leans over and shows you how to shape the edge with short, downward scrapes. He doesn't speak much, just guides. You both work quietly as the fire continues to crackle. Behind you, a woman begins preparing another pot, not for food this time, but for a medicinal wash. Dried herbs are placed in water, along with strips of bark and a few pinches of ash. She hums as it heats, a tune passed down like everything else. That smell again, earthy, bitter, bright, wraps around the kraal, and still the milk cools. The calabash sits near the edge of the cooking space, breathing. You almost expect it to speak. You rise and walk a slow lap around the inner circle of the kraal. The huts stand quietly, each doorway dark and cool. Chickens scratch at the dirt near the fence, while a goat leans dramatically against a post, as if rehearsing for a play. You pass a child sleeping with one arm flung over her face, snoring gently, completely unbothered by the world. You return to the fire, just as the milk wash is ladled into a clay basin. An elder dips a cloth in and begins wiping her arms, her feet, her face. Not a full bath, just a cleansing, a way of saying to the body, you're cared for. You're offered the cloth next. You dip it into the warm herbal water and press it to your neck. It smells like wood smoke and eucalyptus and something else, something sharp and green. You feel clean in a way soap never reaches. It's not just milk, not just ash, not just fire. It's care. And as the sun climbs higher, the kraal breathes with it, never hurrying, never pausing, just living, just giving, just quietly being. The shadows have shifted again. You don't remember when. The change is subtle, like the kraal rearranging itself while your back was turned. The sun is still kind, still filtered through leaves and light dust, but the breeze now carries a bit more voice. Something rustling beyond the fence. You follow the sound toward the cattle enclosure, a semicircular space bordered by tall, uneven posts. They're not nailed or trimmed, just thick branches driven deep into the earth, their bark still intact, some sprouting tiny green leaves, as if they've forgotten their fences now. Inside the enclosure, the cows stir, big, lumbering bodies, calm eyes, horns that curve like slow questions. They shift their weight with creaks and snorts, tails flicking at flies. Their skins shine in the sunlight, not slick, just healthy. Brown, white, black, speckled, each cow with its own pattern, its own mood. Some look sleepy, some suspicious. One looks like it has somewhere to be, though it's clearly not going anywhere fast. A boy stands nearby, thin, barefoot, alert. He's probably not more than 12, but he carries himself like someone who's been doing this forever. He holds a switch, not to strike, just to signal, a guide for the cows, more than a threat. He clicks his tongue, a soft ksk, tsk. One of the cows lifts its head, considers him, and slowly steps forward. The boy grins. You watch as he leads it gently to the milking area. Just a patch of ground, with a worn mat and a small wooden stool. The cow lowers herself, with surprising grace, folding her legs beneath her, as if she's bowing to the morning. He crouches. No ceremony, no fuss. He begins to milk. The rhythm is steady, a quiet squirt into a gourd. Then another. The sound is soft, like a whisper of rain on dry earth. His hands move confidently, practiced, but not rushed. He speaks to the cow the whole time, not in full sentences, just murmurs, nicknames, inside jokes. You take a step closer. He glances at you and nods toward the gourd. Hold it, he says. You kneel, taking the gourd in both hands. It's surprisingly warm, heavy with promise. He continues milking, aiming the stream directly into the container now. Some of it froths at the surface, tiny bubbles catching the sunlight. You can smell it. Grassy, raw, faintly sweet, not at all like the chilled stuff from bottles and cartons. This smells like effort, like closeness. A second cow ambles up, nudging the first one, with the sleepy rudeness only cows can manage. The boy sighs and finishes the task, tying off the gourd's lid with a strip of woven fiber. He sets it aside and wipes his hands on his shorts, then reaches up and scratches behind the cow's ears. She seems unimpressed, but tolerant. Back in the kraal, the fresh milk will be poured into a pot for warming. Some will go into today's food, some into tomorrow's amasi, some saved in the gourd for visitors. Hospitality always begins with nourishment. Another older boy arrives, calling softly for his younger brother. The milker waves him off, then hoists the gourd and hands it to you. You can carry it, he says, with the tone of someone bestowing a sacred duty. You follow him out of the cattle enclosure, careful not to jostle the container. It's heavier than it looks. You begin to understand that everything here, from grinding maize to pouring milk, is a kind of strength training in disguise. Back near the fire, a space has been cleared. A woman adds fresh wood and adjusts the cooking stones. She takes the gourd from you with a nod and unties the lid. A quick sniff, a satisfied hum. The milk is poured into the pot. Steam begins to rise almost immediately. As it warms, a small child runs by, chased by another who's wearing a basket on their head, like a helmet. They loop around the hut twice before being gently redirected by a stern-looking grandmother. No words, just the look. They vanish behind a pile of firewood. The cows low softly in the distance. Back at the enclosure, the boy is already guiding another cow forward. This one's stubborn. She stomps her foot theatrically before finally settling into place. The boy sighs again, this time more dramatically. He catches your eye and grins. Every cow has a story, he says. This one thinks she's better than the others. You nod solemnly. You've met people like that. Someone nearby begins singing. Not loud, not showy, just a melody that blends into the breeze. It doesn't demand attention. It just exists. A thread woven into the day. The milk is ready now, just warm, not boiling. It's lifted off the fire with tongs made of split wood. The pot set gently on a flat stone to cool. The milk will rest. Then it will serve. Like everything else here, it will offer without asking. The boy returns with another filled gourd. This one tied shut with tighter knots. He places it in the shade, beside a woven basket of herbs. No one says what it's for. You know it will be used. Nothing here is left idle. You sit near the fire again. The smoke curls up into the sky like a lazy spell. The cattle murmur behind the fence, and your fingers still smell faintly of fresh milk and sun-warmed wood. You realize, with some surprise, that this has all taken hours, and yet it feels like no time at all. That's the secret of mornings here. They stretch without snapping. They fill without spilling. They teach you how to move without moving too fast. The kraal feels a little quieter now, not sleepy, just settled. The rush of the morning has mellowed into something steadier. The animals are fed. The fire is breathing gently. The bowls have been cleaned, the milk set aside. Even the sun seems to have agreed to pause for a moment before climbing any higher. And then a soft sound breaks through it all. It's not a drum, not a bell, just a voice, low, musical, speaking more to the breeze than to anyone else. You turn your head and see one of the elders standing alone, her face lifted slightly, her hand shading her eyes. She's looking at the sky, not with urgency, but with curiosity, the kind you might reserve for a note slipped under a door. She doesn't speak at first. She waits. Then, another voice joins hers. Another elder, this one a man, emerges from one of the huts, wiping his hands on a cloth. He says something softly in Zulu, pointing to the east. You can't understand the words, but the meaning floats through anyway. Do you feel that? You do. There's a shift in the air, a breeze that wasn't there a moment ago. It moves differently than the morning wind. Lighter, higher, curious. The kind of wind that carries news. The elders begin to talk more intently now, not loudly, just with that quiet urgency reserved for weather and dreams. They are reading the sky. You approach gently, not wanting to intrude, but one of them gestures for you to join. You stand beside them, squinting toward the edge of the kraal. The trees, there are moving, not swaying, just trembling slightly. Their leaves catch the light like hands fluttering at a market stall. The woman elder raises her hand, palm out, and makes a tiny circle with her finger. She's drawing something unseen. A cloud, maybe. A path. A question mark. She mutters again, then points to the birds. You look up and notice them. A loose flock of small brown birds darting toward the west. Not fleeing, just redirecting. The man tilts his head, his fingers drumming thoughtfully against the back of his other hand. He's counting something, not numbers, maybe intervals, time between gusts, time between shifts in cloud. He finally speaks clearly, a phrase, short, final. The woman nods, and then, without a word, they return to their tasks. You're left there for a moment, feeling like you just watched a conversation between the earth and sky that you only partially understood. But it was beautiful. It was whole. Back in the center of the kraal, others begin moving again. A young man carries a small wooden ladder to lean against a hut, not to climb, but to fetch a bundle of herbs drying under the eaves. He shakes them gently, checks their scent, nods. Nearby, a girl sweeps dust in precise patterns just outside her family's doorway, not to clear it completely, but to push it into smooth ridges, decorative, purposeful, a small gesture that says, "We are awake. We are here. We care." The goats bleat loudly, apparently offended by the lack of attention. Two of them headbutt each other half-heartedly before collapsing into the shade, chewing lazily and giving side-eye to a passing chicken. A group of children are crouched in a circle now, playing a game with small pebbles and a single round seed pod. They pass it back and forth with sudden bursts of laughter and serious strategy. You kneel nearby, watching them with quiet amusement. One girl notices you and waves you in. You try. You fail. You are immediately mocked with love. They return to their game, and you rise again, stretching. Your feet are dusty, your hands still smell faintly of milk and herbs, and your mind feels like it's been gently rinsed. Across the kraal, the elder woman from earlier is back beneath the sky. This time, she holds a small bundle of dried leaves, tied together with string. She raises it, turns it slightly, and lets the wind pull one strand loose. This is how weather is watched here. Not forecasted, not debated. Read, interpreted, felt. Historians would call it oral meteorology. But here, it's just called paying attention. You realize you haven't looked at a clock all day. You couldn't guess the hour if you tried, and yet you feel exactly where you should be. A young man walks past with a woven basket balanced on his head. It's filled with fresh cow dung and dry grass, fuel for another fire. He greets you casually, and you return the nod. Here, carrying cow dung is not unpleasant or strange. It's necessary. It's life. Even waste is welcome when it feeds the flame. A breeze picks up again. this time stronger. A few leaves scatter. The smoke from the fire begins to lean sideways, drifting lazily toward the edge of the kraal. The woman elder lifts her head again and smiles slightly. "It's going to rain later," she says aloud. "Not today. Maybe tomorrow." You believe her, because everything here speaks, if you're willing to listen. The birds, the wind, the steam rising from a pot, the dirt shaped into a sweep of patterns outside a hut, the goats even, when they feel like it. And you're beginning to understand the language. The fire is quieter now, low and steady, a smoldering heartbeat at the center of the kraal. Most of the pots have been cleaned and set aside. Ash clings lightly to the ground around the hearth like scattered chalk. The sun has shifted just enough to throw long, angled shadows across the earth, spilling out behind pots, tree roots, and the stubby wooden stools that remain tucked here and there, waiting. You settle onto one of them. It wobbles just slightly. Everything here does. Nothing is manufactured to precision, but everything works. It holds your weight like it was carved for you. You rest your hands on your knees. Breathe. There's no task for the moment. Then, movement. Not rushed. Never rushed. Just quiet purpose. The elder woman returns with a bundle of long, thin sticks, tucked beneath one arm, and a broad palm leaf fan in her other hand. She lowers herself slowly onto the earth beside the fire and begins the end of morning ritual, sweeping the ashes. But this isn't just cleaning. It's careful, intentional. She uses the fan first, not to stir dust away, but to coax the embers apart, to expose the glowing ones still holding heat. She places a few fresh twigs on top, just to keep the coals alive for midday. Then she begins to sweep the ashes outward, away from the hearth's center. Her hand moves in arcs, slow and circular, gathering the soft gray remains of burned wood into little piles. She hums as she works, a soft sound that doesn't rise above the crackle of the fire, but fills the space around her anyway. You move to help, unsure how. She gestures to a nearby woven tray. You take it and hold it as she brushes the ashes into it with the palm fan. The ashes are light but fine, clinging to the air. Your skin, your nose. They don't feel dirty. They feel soft, finished. She speaks then, low and rhythmic, not quite singing, not quite praying. She's talking to the fire, thanking it. She thanks it for waking, for cooking, for staying with the family, for remembering. The words are ordinary, but they carry weight. When the ashes are gathered, she scatters some of them at the base of the cooking tree, the same one that shaded the morning meal. A small pinch is saved in a clay pot. It will be used later, mixed with herbs to wash hands again. A few grains are sprinkled at the doorway of the nearest hut. All of it means something. Even the soot is part of the cycle. You sit back again, letting the smoke twirl toward the sky. Around you, the kraal breathes differently, not sleepy, just satisfied, like someone who's eaten well and is now stretching before a nap. The cooking space is wiped with a bundle of dry grass. No brooms, no scrub brushes, just what the land offers. The grass leaves faint marks in the ash-darkened soil, lines that echo the shape of flames. A young girl arrives with an armful of rinsed utensils, bowls, spoons, small gourds. Each one is set upside down on a clean mat to dry in the sun. She moves quickly, silently, only pausing once to adjust the edge of the mat so it doesn't curl. Details matter here. You pick up a spoon to examine it. It's carved from bone or wood, smoothed by years of use, shaped not by design, but by repetition. Its handle is darkened from hands. You could trace its history in the dents and curves. The elder finishes her sweeping. The fire is smaller now, tucked under its light blanket of coals. It still smolders, quietly. It won't go out, not until nightfall. And even then, someone will tend it. She reaches for the last handful of ash in the tray and dusts it gently over her arms. It clings to her skin for a moment before fading. A small, quiet cleansing. She looks at you and nods. You understand. This wasn't just cleaning, it was closure. You stand and stretch again. The sun is warm on your shoulders now. The midday wind has begun its slow crawl through the kraal, lifting bits of grass and carrying the scent of smoke and wood and faintly sweet milk. There's no applause, no announcement, just a calm shift. The fire rests. The meal is memory, and the day continues. You step away from the hearth, walking toward the edge of the kraal, where the fence opens into a narrow path. You pass the tree that shaded the morning offering. The bowl at its base is now empty, a ring of ants exploring its edge. Nothing is wasted here. A few chickens cluck their way across the path, unconcerned. A goat bleats dramatically and lies down in a patch of dust, legs folded like a dramatic actor in the final scene. You return to the center of the kraal and watch as the younger children begin organizing game stones in a wide circle. Someone fetches a leather mat. There's talk of storytelling later, or perhaps a song, but for now, everything is quiet. And in the quiet, you begin to feel what this place has known all along. That breakfast isn't an event, it's a rhythm. Tether to those who came before, a gesture of gratitude to the ones still walking, a reminder to the body, you are here, you are fed, you are not forgotten. And as the ashes settle, and the spoons dry, and the sky warms into afternoon, you know something else. The meal has ended, but the care has not. It's quieter now, but not in a hollow way. The kraal holds a kind of hush that comes only after things have been done well. The fire, the food, the laughter, the offering, all have passed, and what remains is not stillness, but a kind of glow. The bowls are dry, the ash has settled, and now, from somewhere beyond the huts, comes a new sound. Click, tap, click, tap. You follow it around one of the far dwellings, where two women sit in the shade of a thatched eave, weaving. Their fingers move with gentle precision, pulling long, green reeds from a bundle and folding them in slow, hypnotic patterns. The clicking sound is from the bone needle they use to tighten each row. You crouch nearby. They nod, not pausing. Beside them, a child holds the beginning of what might become a mat or a basket. It's hard to tell yet. The shape is still forming. The older woman gently rotates the work in her hands, checking the alignment, adjusting the pattern. She doesn't count. She knows the rhythm by heart. You sit cross-legged, just far enough to not interrupt, and begin to notice the way the light shifts across the reeds as they move. Greens and golds, dull, then shiny, dry, then damp. They speak occasionally, but only in quiet phrases. It's the kind of conversation you can carry without stopping your hands. Further down the path, a young man kneels over a tool, a curved knife. He sharpens it slowly on a flat, dark stone. The sound of metal on stone is steady, gentle, and almost meditative. He pauses now and then to test the edge on his thumb, then continues. His feet are bare, toes curled slightly into the warm earth. He's not rushing. Nearby, a teenage girl uncoils a long strip of dried leather, preparing to wrap the handle of a tool. She works under the shade of a tree, legs tucked under her, face calm. Her fingers move quickly, but her breathing is slow. There's no urgency. There's just purpose. You pass a boy balancing a jug of water on his head. He's probably too small for it, but determined. He wobbles once, steadies himself with a dramatic pause, then continues proudly. A woman claps from the doorway, laughing softly. He grins without turning his head. Near the central fire pit, another woman checks a basket of dry grass, separating long, stiff strands from ones that have softened too much. Her fingers are dyed faintly from herbs, green under the nails, hints of ochre along the fingertips, and the sweeping begins again. Not the morning kind, the sacred sweep around the hearth, but the daily, practical kind. A young girl with a bundle of reeds tied at the base begins sweeping dust out from under the sleeping mats. She moves rhythmically, barefoot with a quiet determination. Her sister follows behind, patting the mats flat, folding blankets, folding air. You realize these acts, mending, wrapping, sharpening, sweeping, aren't just chores. They're rituals of care, tiny acts that say, this space matters, this body matters, this day matters. A man emerges from a hut, carrying a calabash filled with fermented milk. He lifts the lid, sniffs it, nods, and carries it back to the shelf, where it will rest in the shade. One gourd, down, another ready. Like breath in and breath out, you sit again near the weavers. One of them gestures for you to try. She hands you a bundle of reeds, green, springy, fragrant, and shows you how to bend and tuck the fibers into place. Your fingers fumble at first. You misplace a loop. She gently taps your wrist, correcting the angle. You try again. It's not easy, but it's strangely satisfying. You begin to understand why these tasks, so small, so humble, are repeated every day. They don't just fix things, they center people. The pattern of the mat begins to emerge. It's nothing fancy, just a square, but you see your lines, uneven, honest, woven alongside hers, and in that, a strange, beautiful sense of contribution. You're interrupted by laughter. A group of children is playing again, this time with a long rope made of twisted bark. They chase each other, laughing, tumbling into dust, getting up just as quickly. Their joy is wild, but not disruptive. It rolls like a wave, then fades like foam. One of them, perhaps 5 years old, stops and points at the clouds. She says something about a cow in the sky. Everyone laughs, but when you look, you do see the shape, a round puff with 2 horns, and a tail trailing behind it. The wind shifts again, slightly stronger. It carries with it the scent of ash, bark, and something cooking far in the distance. You wonder if another kraal is making the same breakfast, performing the same rituals, grounding itself in the same rhythm. Of course it is, because these moments are not isolated. They are part of something older, wider, a net of mornings across generations. And here, at this moment, you are woven into it, like the mat beneath your hands, like the reed that bends and holds, like the child who points at the sky and sees something no one else did until now. You feel the shift before you see it. It begins as a soft murmur of movement, low voices, the shuffle of feet, the creak of a pot being set down. Not loud, not dramatic, just a gentle rearranging of the air, as if the kraal has taken a deep breath and is settling into its second skin. The fire is no longer the focus. Now, the shade is. You follow the sound to a tree, broad and bowed, its branches wide, like arms held out to catch the breeze. Beneath it lies a mat, woven in thick spirals, half covered by the flickering light of the afternoon sun pushing through the leaves. This is the sitting place, the lounging space, the breath between labor's zone, where time stretches like warm dough. You're invited with a nod, no words needed. You take your place on the edge of the mat and feel the ground's warmth soaking through. It's not hot, just grounded. Around you, others begin to gather. Some carry stools, some just sit cross-legged, some lie all the way down and close their eyes, heads cushioned by folded cloth or bent arms. No one speaks loudly. The voices are hushed, like waves after a storm. A man begins whittling a small stick with a short, sharp blade. It's not clear what he's making yet. Could be a spoon, could be nothing. He doesn't seem concerned. It's the motion that matters. A child nearby sings to herself, drawing shapes in the dust with a piece of charcoal. You lean over to watch. Circles, spirals, stick figure cattle. She offers you the charcoal with a solemn look of great generosity. You accept it, and she watches to see what you'll draw. You sketch a line, then another. You try a goat. It looks like a lopsided dog. She snorts softly and draws a much better one next to it. You accept your artistic defeat. A breeze moves through the tree above, setting off a gentle ripple in the branches. A few dry leaves fall and land on the mat. No one moves to sweep them away. They're not a bother. They're just part of the moment. A group of young women chat softly near the edge of the space. Their conversation flows in gentle waves, pausing for breath, changing direction, coming back again. You catch a few words. Someone's baby is teething. Someone else's goat is eating the wrong plants. Someone else, with a sly smile, mentions a boy with kind eyes and a crooked walk. Laughter blooms. Not loud, not forced, just real. The kind of laughter that rolls in gently, stays a moment, and then drifts off like smoke. You lie back for a moment, feeling the mat under your shoulders and the air on your face. The smells are a mix now. Dried grass, clean sweat, ash, milk, dust, and a faint sweetness from a nearby pile of drying herbs. You could fall asleep, and in fact, someone does. A man to your left shifts once, exhales, and begins snoring faintly. No one minds. A girl places a cloth over his eyes, then goes back to braiding her sister's hair. There is no embarrassment here in rest. It is respected. It is earned. The elder woman appears again, carrying a small basket filled with cut fruit and roasted ground nuts. She walks from one group to the next, offering handfuls. You take a few, a sliver of guava, a piece of dried mango. They taste exactly like the sun. The nuts are warm and cracked slightly between your teeth, rich and faintly smoky. The basket is past, always past. Nothing is hoarded. Nothing is wasted. Even the broken pieces of fruit are saved to feed the chickens later. Even the husks from the ground nuts will be tossed into the fire at night to keep mosquitoes away. You feel a gentle thump near your foot. A toddler has wandered into the edge of the mat and dropped a carved wooden cow on your leg. He looks at you like this was an intentional gift. You pick it up and hold it out. He takes it with both hands, then sits right next to you, as if this is now your assigned seatmate for the next while. He mumbles to the cow, possibly giving it instructions, possibly telling it secrets. The wind shifts again. You look up. Above, the sky is deepening, not darkening, just deepening. That particular shade of blue that comes just before the light starts to lean. The tree above catches it, every leaf lit gold around the edges. One of the boys calls out, not loudly, and throws a stick. A dog bounds after it, from nowhere, tail wagging like a whip. Dust rises in a lazy spiral. You sit up again. You're not sleepy anymore. You're not thinking about what comes next. You're just here, with everyone else, with the tree, with the mat, with the drifting seeds, and the cows snorting in the distance. You've eaten, you've helped, you've rested, and now, for a moment, you're simply part of the kraal's pulse. It's not time to leave, but it's no longer morning. You can feel the slow turn of the day. The meal has passed, but the memory of it lingers. In the ashes, the laughter, and the cow carved from wood. The light shifts again, more noticeably this time, not in a hurry, just as a quiet reminder that afternoon is drifting into its final chapters. The long shadows of the huts begin to stretch across the kraal, softening the sharp edges of the ground, dappling the mats, the fire pit, the paths worn by barefoot routines. You rise from your resting place and brush dust from your legs. Though it doesn't make much difference, dust is a part of life here. Like breath, like rhythm, it clings gently, reminding you that you've walked somewhere real. At the far edge of the kraal, an elder stands, scanning the horizon. He doesn't speak, but everyone nearby seems to understand. A quiet murmur spreads. People begin to stand, collecting tools, rolling mats, lifting empty bowls. Not with urgency, just readiness. He's reading the weather again, but this time, it's not wind or clouds he watches. It's the shape of the sky, the sound of birds, the curve of smoke. You move closer, careful not to interrupt. He raises his hand and points, not at anything specific, just generally east, toward the distant line of trees and ridges. His lips move softly, a few words, maybe an observation, maybe a question. Then, silence, the kind that hums beneath everything. Another elder, A woman this time joins him. She lifts her face, closes her eyes, and listens to the birds, to the dry grass shifting, to something deep beneath it all. This is the moment when things begin to be interpreted, not just observed. They murmur between themselves, gesturing now and then. They are not predicting rain, not yet, but they are feeling its mood. The boy with the milking gourd passes by, carrying a smaller calabash now, bound with leather at the lip. He pauses near the elders, listens for a second, then continues. No one needs to ask what he's heard. Everyone sees it in the tilt of his shoulders. The rain might come tomorrow, might, not will. Here, weather is not commanded, it is courted. You turn to see another woman placing a small clay vessel beneath the edge of a thatched roof, just in case. The first drops, when they arrive, will collect there. She presses a stone beside it to keep it upright. It's not a forecast. It's an invitation. The goats, still sulking in their preferred shade, grunt softly. They know something too. They always do. A girl walks past you, carrying a bunch of herbs, freshly cut, not for eating, for burning, if needed. Some of them, you recognize now, were added to the milk wash earlier. Their smell rises faintly, sharp and comforting. She's followed by a smaller child, dragging a stick behind him in the dust. He pauses every few feet to carve a spiral, then starts again. He is completely absorbed in his task, shaping the earth into slow, spinning memory. The elders are now seated, still speaking, but less urgently. It seems the sky has made up its mind. For now, a calm settles, but the watching doesn't stop. One of the boys climbs halfway up a tree and perches like a cat, scanning the clouds. He shouts down something half joking, and a girl on the ground throws a pebble at him, missing by several glorious feet. You smile. There's no ceremony, no horn blown to announce the next thing. But something pulls you toward the center again. The cooking area has changed. The fire is little more than orange dust now. Coals pulsing low, like the kraal's heartbeat has dropped into deep rest. The elder woman is back, kneeling beside a pot, her hands slow and sure, not cooking, packing. She ladles the last of the midday broth into a small container, covering it with cloth and twine. Someone may need it later. Someone always does. She sprinkles water over the coals, not to kill them, but to quiet them. Steam rises, like a sigh. You catch it in your nose, ashes and bark and broth and something unnameable, like breath from the past. You glance back toward the fence. The sky is still bright, but the edges are softening. The air smells different now, cooler. The sun, high and golden, moments ago, now walks with a longer stride. And above all this, quiet, not silence, just the kind of quiet that comes when everything has been done with care. A rooster crows again, late and indignant, as if he's forgotten his schedule entirely. Children are gathered again, this time not for games, but for listening. A story is about to begin. One of the elders, seated on a mat near the fire's memory, lifts his hand. A hush falls. You sit among them, shoulders tucked between two children, still brushing dust off their knees. The elder begins, not with "once upon a time," but with a phrase like a door creaking open, long before my grandfather's grandfather had knees strong enough to chase a goat. Laughter, and then the tale begins, of a lazy cow who dreamed she could speak, of a hunter who mistook his own shadow for a lion, of a clever girl who learned the weather's secret by listening to ants. You lean in, not for the ending, but for the telling. The kraal glows with afternoon light. The goats have gone still. The wind has paused. The sky watches from above, amused. And the day, once full of movement, now sways like a hammock in the wind. Slow, woven, strong, the story drifts into silence, like a boat pulling gently back from a familiar shore. There is no applause, just that quiet pause that follows a tale well told. The children shift slightly, some leaning against each other, some still gazing into the space where the words had been, letting the last images linger in their minds. You do the same. A man chuckles and rises slowly, stretching his arms until his shoulders pop. Another child, clearly inspired, begins reenacting part of the story with exaggerated facial expressions. He is, without a doubt, the talking cow. No one corrects him. Everyone seems to agree he's nailed it. And now, without announcement, the kraal begins to move again. A woman calls softly to her daughter. A teenage boy disappears into a hut and emerges with a coiled rope and a carved stick. He tests the rope's strength by tugging it once, twice, then slings it over his shoulder. There's no sign, no whistle, no chore list, but everyone seems to know what comes next. The tools come out. They're not elaborate, just simple implements that have lived long lives in quiet hands. Short-handled hoes, long poles with sharpened ends, woven baskets, rope, dried reeds. Nothing shiny, nothing new. You follow them as they move past the kraal fence, out onto the narrow paths that lead to the fields and the edges of the homestead. The dust is soft under your feet. Grass brushes your ankles. A few goats glance up as you pass, then return to the serious business of chewing absolutely everything. Some people begin checking fences, testing the strength of woven barriers, adjusting poles, patching worn spots with fresh bark. One man sharpens a wooden peg by rubbing it against a stone, his motions steady and thoughtless, like his hands have long since memorized the task. Nearby, a mother and daughter squat beside a chicken coop, replacing a broken piece of wall with a new segment of woven stick. The child drops a piece, and her mother hands it back with a smile, not scolding, just teaching. You notice how much is fixed with what's already here. Nothing is discarded if it can be repaired. No need for nails when you have fiber. No need for paint when you have sun, soot, and time. And every task is done with the same pace, steady, intentional, unhurried. You spot the elder woman once more, now crouched near a basket, checking its base for signs of wear. She pinches the reeds, testing for brittleness. She pulls one loose, replaces it with a new strand, and presses it down firmly. She doesn't look up, but she knows you're watching. Everything speaks, she says, almost casually. You wait. She pats the basket. This one says it's almost ready to rest, but not quite. You smile and nod, and she nods back, then returns to her work. On the other side of the clearing, someone has begun laying out tools for tomorrow's digging. Wooden spades, bone scrapers, a heavy rock with a smooth edge. They're arranged in a line, each one facing the same direction. It feels almost ceremonial. Maybe it is. Children gather again, not to play this time, but to mimic the adults. One girl sharpens a stick on a stone. Another tries to fix a toy basket with a blade of grass that clearly won't hold. They are trying, learning, becoming. A boy walks past you with a shallow bowl balanced carefully in both hands. Inside are a few small nails, 2 bits of shell, and what might be a beetle wing. He treats them like treasure. He probably isn't wrong. Closer to the huts, a man kneels beside a low table, carefully binding a cracked gourd with soft twine soaked in water. It tightens as it dries, sealing the split. Another object saved. Another voice kept. You run your fingers over the edge of a wooden pestle nearby, its handle worn smooth, the base slightly rounded from years of grinding. It has a weight to it, but also a softness, like it's been taught to behave. You realize, again, how little is wasted here, even time. There are no hours blocked out for maintenance. It just happens, as needed, when needed, always gently. You move to help where you can. You hold the basket steady as someone patches its corner. You carry a coil of rope from one end of the kraal to the other. You tie a knot, badly. Someone reties it without teasing. The sun is lower now. Its light more golden, more horizontal. It slants across the huts, catches on the bits of dry grass, throws long lines between the fence posts. A man walks past with an axe balanced on his shoulder, not for cutting down trees, just for trimming, shaping, making. He hums something tuneless and good. You pass the fire again. It has almost disappeared, buried beneath a dome of soft white ash. But one coal glows red when the wind nudges it. It's not gone, just waiting. The kraal quiets again. Work is slowing, not stopping, never fully stopping, but softening, folding into itself like a well-used cloth. The tools are returned to their places, under mats, beside doorways, inside hollow tree trunks. Nothing is locked. Nothing is hidden. Trust is as much a material here as twine or clay. Someone begins setting out clean mats. A new fire will be lit soon. Not for cooking this time. For stories. For warmth. For watching stars. But that's still to come. For now, the wind shifts. Cooler. And everything in the kraal, tools, people, animals, takes one long, shared breath. The air has cooled. Not cold, just enough to notice, enough to change how the light feels on your skin. The sun is no longer overhead, but lingering to one side, casting long golden shafts across the kraal like paint from a generous hand. The chickens settle into quieter clucks. The goats stretch their necks, roll in the dust, and decide, as goats often do, that absolutely nothing more should be required of them today. You sit by the fence now, watching, and next to you, an elder crouches in the dirt. His eyes turned skyward. He's not watching the clouds. Not exactly. He's reading something deeper. You follow his gaze. At first, there's nothing unusual. The same drifting clouds. The same soft silhouettes of trees beyond the horizon. But then you begin to notice the patterns. How one wisp of vapor curls around another. How certain birds fly, not straight, but in arcs. How the smell of the earth has changed, just slightly. Wetter, sweeter. The elder leans down and scoops a pinch of soil into his palm. He squeezes it, crumbles it, sniffs it, then scatters it again. He doesn't say much, but when he speaks, His words drop like small stones into a still pond. Rain, he says. Soon. A few nearby adults look up. One nods. Another begins quietly folding a mat and tucking it under the eave of a hut. There's no panic, no orders shouted, just a slight shift in posture, an awareness that the sky is listening, and soon it may answer. You look to the east, where the light is thicker, heavier. You can't see clouds yet, but the world feels expectant. A girl carries out a set of wooden pegs, tapping them into the dirt beside a raised basket. She ties a cover over it with leather cord. Another person moves the drying herbs from the open path to a shaded wall. The goats are rounded up, not forcefully, but with low calls and short claps. They shuffle, grumble, and eventually comply. The dogs seem to know too. One of them stretches long, yawns, and retreats into the darkest part of a hut, like it has a personal appointment with the floor. You join the elder by the fence. He doesn't look at you, but he nods slightly, as if to say, "You see it too, don't you?" And you do. The way the wind curls, slightly lower to the ground. The way the trees stop whispering and just wait. Someone brings out a small bowl of ash and scatters it in a circle near the fire pit. Not a superstition, a preparation. The ash keeps the water from turning the earth to mud. A teenage boy climbs halfway up the fence and peers into the distance. "Nothing yet," he calls. But everyone knows it won't be long. The elder finally rises, brushes his hands off, and walks back toward the center of the kraal. He stops at a shallow basin, a hollow in the ground lined with polished stone. You hadn't noticed it before. It's small and half full of dust. He begins to clean it gently with a bundle of grass, then pours a ladle of water inside. A mirror. That's what it becomes. A sky bowl. Everyone will watch it now, not to predict the rain, but to greet it. Nearby, the children still play, though their games are slower now. One girl balances a dried gourd on her head and tries to dance, but the gourd tumbles after the third spin. Laughter erupts. A younger boy points skyward and says something dramatic. The others run for cover, not from fear, but delight. The coming rain is not punishment. It's presence. It's the sky remembering you. A woman appears from one of the huts, holding a wrap, a long cloth dyed with deep browns and reds. She folds it around her shoulders, not tightly, just enough to be ready. You notice several others doing the same. One by one, people become rain prepared, without ever saying the word. The breeze grows stronger. It hums through the fence. It carries the first scent, not of wet, but of about to be. You feel it in your nose, in your chest, the way you feel the moment before a favorite song begins. Then a sound, one drop on a leaf, then another on the edge of a roof. You look around, smiles, not surprise, just confirmation. You walk to the center of the kraal, where others are already gathering. Mats are tucked. A small cloth is draped over the remaining firewood. The youngest children are ushered beneath awnings, their feet still stamping happily. You remain standing, because the first drops are not to be missed. You lift your chin, and then, finally, rain, soft, gentle, like fingers drumming lightly on a drum made of time. It patters on the thatch roofs. It kisses the dust into darkening shapes. It lands on your shoulders, your hands, your cheeks, and in the bowl, ripples. Everyone watches. No one rushes inside. The rain is welcome. The kraal glistens, a sheen of memory, of rhythm fulfilled, of thirst acknowledged and answered The rain doesn't pour, it sings, a soft, steady rhythm that moves across the kraal like a familiar lullaby, tapping gently on the roofs, slipping down thatched eaves in tiny streams, pooling around stones, tracing quiet fingers through the dust. You sit near the edge of one hut, under the shelter of its roof. The rain drifts just beyond your toes, and every so often, a droplet bounces close enough to kiss your skin. You don't flinch. It's warm. It's welcome. Inside the kraal, everyone moves a little slower now, not from caution, but from comfort. A group of children watch the rain from the shelter of the granary's overhang. One pokes his hand out, daring the drops to dance on his fingers. Another leans over and lets it soak her braid. She laughs, and the sound skips like a stone over water. You glance at the shallow bowl again, the one the elder filled earlier. Its surface is full now, rippling with each new drop. Around the rim, tiny leaves float like boats at rest. You hear a voice beside you. The elder again. He's seated on a low stool, watching the bowl as if it holds not just water, but memory. This, he says, gesturing toward the rain, is not an interruption. You nod. He continues. This is the rest between verses, the breath before a new story. No one works while it rains. Not out of fear, not out of rules, but because the sky has claimed its moment, and everyone respects the rhythm. Inside the huts, quiet activity begins. A woman unfolds a mat and lays out thin strips of dried fruit for sorting. A child counts them in threes, her lips moving silently. Another elder begins twisting fiber into twine, her hands moving steadily by firelight. You are invited into one of the homes, not with words, but with the brief tilt of a head and a space made beside a cooking basket. Inside, it smells of smoke, woven grass, warm earth, and a hint of honey. The space is dim, but not dark. Light filters through small gaps in the walls, each one creating a stripe of gold across the interior. You sit cross-legged, back straight, feeling the warmth of the floor seep into your spine. The woman in the hut stirs a pot, not over flame now, but over coals, low and slow. You ask what she's making. She says simply, "For later." That's enough. A little one sleeps in the corner, curled like a comma beneath a blanket. Their breathing matches the rhythm of the falling rain. In the center of the hut, a gourd is passed. Inside, the fermented milk from earlier, cool, now, and thicker. You take a sip. It tastes more alive than before, tangy, rested, like it knows something you don't. Outside, the rain deepens for a moment, just long enough to drum on the roof, like a burst of applause. Then it softens again. A teenager leans against the doorway, watching the way the water pools at the base of a tree. He hums something soft, a lullaby maybe, a tune with no name. You realize the kraal is listening to the rain, the way people listen to a favorite story, one they've heard 1,000 times, but always welcome. The children begin a new game. One crawls on hands and knees, pretending to be a goat that refuses to come in out of the rain. Another tugs her horns and insists, "You'll catch cold." The goat bleats with great drama and flops into the mud. Nobody stops them, because even play, here, is part of the rhythm. The woman finishes stirring. She covers the pot and sets it aside, resting her hand briefly on the lid, as though sealing in not just warmth, but intention. Another woman braids her daughter's hair. The little girl fidgets, groans, begs for it to be over. The mother rolls her eyes and sings under her breath. The braids continue. You think about how many hands have done this, how many rains have fallen like this, how many mornings began with fire and ended with this soft hush of droplets tapping like fingers on drumskin. The elder in the hut reaches for a cloth and begins wiping a set of spoons, slowly, as though each one holds a memory worth polishing. And outside, the birds return. One chirp, then another, not a full song yet, but a promise. The rain begins to slow. You step back out into the kraal. The air feels washed, not just clean, restarted. The colors are richer now, earth darker, leaves shinier. Even the chickens look smug with their damp feathers and muddy feet. You walk slowly past the bowl. It is full, perfectly still. You look in. You see the sky. You see your own face. And you see, somehow, that this rain was never just about weather. It was an invitation to pause, to listen, to belong. The rain is gone, not disappeared, but retreated, like a guest who knows exactly when to leave. In its place, the kraal hums with damp contentment. The air is thicker, rich with the scent of watered earth and wet bark. You step carefully through the grass, soft now underfoot, the dust subdued into smooth, darkened clay. Everything glistens. Thatched roofs gleam like woven gold. Leaves drip at their tips. Even the stones look polished, as if the sky paused to clean its reflection in them. You walk slowly, breathing it all in. There is no rush. The kraal isn't eager to return to full motion. It stretches gently, like someone waking from a nap, so deep it softened their bones. The fire has been rekindled, just slightly. A few small sticks laid gently over coaxed coals. It doesn't roar. It whispers. The smoke lifts lazily, pale and ribbon thin. And for a while, everyone gathers again, not to cook, but to sit. One by one, they return to the heart of the space. You find your spot again on the mat, still slightly warm from the last body that sat there. You cross your legs. Your hands rest on your knees. Your breathing matches the rhythm of the smoke. A bowl is passed again. Not milk this time. A simple broth. Warm, mild, flavored with roots and memory. It tastes like rest. A few pieces of roasted maize follow. Some fruit. Everyone eats slowly, not out of tiredness, but reverence. This is the soft closing of the day's story. The final pages before sleep. The children, still damp-haired and bright-eyed, curl into their own quiet games. One taps two sticks together in a soft beat. Another cradles a rock wrapped in cloth like it's a doll. You lean back, elbows in the dirt, head tilted toward the sky. Above you, the clouds have begun to part, not entirely, just enough to reveal one star, then another. The elders begin speaking again, not stories, but soft conversation, the kind that only rises when the hard work is behind you and the world has nothing left to ask of you. A young woman begins to hum, not a song with words, just a long, low thread of melody, winding through the kraal like incense. It rises into the darkening sky and then vanishes. You realize something important. No one here has checked a timepiece today. No clocks, no watches, no ringing alarms. Everything has happened when it was meant to. Waking with the fire, grinding with the sun, milking with the warmth, eating when the steam lifted, resting when the shadows lengthened, pausing when the rain spoke. And now, this soft, glowing, weightless moment is exactly on time. You look toward the fence, where the edge of the world meets the edge of this life. The fields beyond are quiet, the trees still. Even the wind feels gentler, like it has nothing more to deliver. Someone stokes the fire gently, adding a stick. It crackles, then settles. The goats are curled now, legs tucked, heads low. The chickens, too. Even the stubborn rooster has finally taken the hint and gone silent. You glance again at the sky. It holds more stars now. A net of light stretched carefully across indigo. No constellations you recognize, but one someone here surely does. You lie back fully now, arms folded behind your head, and let the warmth of the ground cradle you. The fire pops once, soft and forgiving. Around you, the kraal begins to drift toward sleep, not with a command, but with a sigh, the kind that comes after everything has been done well. That's the story, isn't it? The one you've just lived. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't a spectacle. It was a rhythm, a slow, steady remembering of food that knew your hunger, of work that knew your pace, of rain that knew when to fall, and of people who knew how to rest. Now, as the final embers glow and the stars bloom above you, let your thoughts slow, just a little more. The kraal has gone quiet now, wrapped in its own soft hush. The last voices fade into the rustling of grass, the gentle shift of animals settling in, the lullaby rhythm of night insects rising in chorus. You feel the earth beneath you, solid, forgiving, and above, the cool whisper of the evening sky. There's no need to move, no need to plan. The fire no longer needs tending. The bowls are cleaned. The breath of the day is exhaled. Let yourself float now in the memory of warmth, of crushed maize under your hands, of shared milk in carved calabash, of the smell of ash and honey and morning dew. Let your breath match the rhythm of the kraal, slow, open, patient. You're part of something older now, older than alarm clocks, schedules, or screens. You're inside the quiet story of a place that remembers what the body forgets. That care can be slow. That nourishment can be simple. That rest is not earned. It is returned to, like the rain to the bowl, like the breath to the fire, like you now, to sleep. So close your eyes. The kraal is still here, and the day is finally ready to let you go. Sweet dreams.